The crisp mountain air filled my lungs as I took in the breathtaking vista before me. The trail stretched out ahead, winding through dense forest and rocky outcrops. I adjusted my backpack and set off, eager to begin my 3-day solo hike through the wilderness. Little did I know, this adventure would become a nightmare I'd never forget. The first few hours were uneventful, just me and nature in perfect harmony. As the sun began to set, I found a small clearing to set up camp for the night. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or distant animal call. As I sat by my small campfire, a twig snapped somewhere in the darkness beyond the firelight. I tensed, scanning the tree line, but saw nothing. Just a deer, I muttered to myself, trying to shake off the sudden unease that gripped me. I crawled into my tent, zipping it up tight. Sleep came fitfully, filled with strange dreams of being watched by unseen eyes. I woke with a start in the pre-dawn gloom, heart racing. For a moment, I could have sworn I saw a figure silhouetted against the tent wall, but when I blinked, it was gone. Shaking off my nerves, I packed up camp and hit the trail early. The day was overcast, the forest unusually quiet. No birdsong, no scurrying animals. Just an oppressive silence that seemed to press in on me from all sides. Around midday, I came across something that made my blood run cold. In a small clearing just off the trail, I found a tattered backpack. It was slashed to ribbons, the contents strewn about. Dark stains that looked horribly like dried blood spattered the fabric. My hands shook as I examined the pack, looking for any clue as to its owner. A small notebook fell out, and I flipped it open. The last entry, written in a frantic scrawl, read, "It's following me." Oh God, I can hear it getting closer. If anyone finds this, please tell my family I dashed the entry cut off abruptly, a long drag mark trailing off the page. I dropped the notebook like it had burned me, stumbling backward. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get as far away from this place as possible. But I couldn't leave someone in trouble. With trembling fingers, I pulled out my satellite phone to call for help. No signal. Of course. I was on my own. Hello? I called out, my voice sounding small and scared in the eerie silence. Is anyone there? Do you need help? Only the wind answered, whispering through the trees. Was it my imagination, or did it almost sound like words? Like a voice saying, "Run, run, run." I shouldered my pack, determined to make it to the ranger station I knew was about 10 miles ahead. As I walked, the shadows seemed to deepen, the trees looming ominously overhead. More than once, I caught glimpses of movement in my peripheral vision, but when I turned to look, there was nothing there. As night fell, a thick mist began to roll in, reducing visibility to mere feet in front of me. I knew I should stop and make camp, but the memory of that shredded backpack spurred me on. I had to get out of these woods. The beam of my headlamp cut weakly through the fog. Suddenly, a figure darted across the trail ahead of me. It was too quick to make out clearly, but it seemed impossibly tall and thin, moving with an unnatural, jerky gait. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice cracking with fear. No response. I picked up my pace, practically jogging now. The mist swirled around me, and I could have sworn I heard whispers coming from it. Snatches of conversation, pleas for help, screams cut short. This isn't real, I told myself firmly. You're just tired and scared. Keep moving. But then I heard it. A low, guttural growl that was definitely not my imagination. It came from somewhere behind me, too close for comfort. I broke into a run, branches whipping at my face as I tore down the trail. The growl became a roar, and I could hear something crashing through the underbrush in pursuit. I didn't dare look back, focusing all my energy on putting one foot in front of the other. Suddenly, the ground disappeared beneath me. I had veered off the trail in my panic, and now I was tumbling down a steep slope. I rolled to a stop at the bottom, dazed and battered. As I struggled to my feet, my headlamp illuminated a cave entrance. Without thinking, I dove inside, pressing myself against the cold stone wall. My pursuers' roars echoed outside, getting closer and closer. I held my breath, praying it wouldn't find me. The sound stopped abruptly, replaced by an even more terrifying silence. Had it given up? Or was it waiting just outside the cave mouth? Minutes stretched into hours. I didn't dare move, every muscle tense and ready to flee. As the first hints of dawn lightened the sky outside, I finally gathered the courage to peer out of the cave. The forest looked normal in the pale morning light. No sign of the creature that had chased me, no evidence of the terror I'd experienced. Had it all been in my head? But then I saw it. A single, enormous footprint in the mud just outside the cave. Whatever had been hunting me, it was very, very real. I knew I should get up, try to find my way back to the trail and civilization. But my legs wouldn't move. I huddled in the cave, torn between the need to escape and the paralyzing fear of what might be waiting for me out there. As the sun climbed higher, strange shadows began to dance across the cave walls. They didn't match the movements of the trees outside. They looked almost like figures, writhing and reaching toward me. A voice drifted in on the breeze, barely more than a whisper, "Join us, stay with us forever." I pressed my hands over my ears, but I couldn't block it out. The voice was inside my head now, growing louder and more insistent. "You can't escape. This forest is ours. You are ours." I screamed, the sound echoing off the cave walls. But even as the scream died away, I heard something else. Footsteps, coming closer. Human heavy breathing and heartbeat, branches cracking, footsteps getting closer. My heart pounded in my chest as the footsteps drew nearer. I pressed myself further into the cave, praying for invisibility. A shadow fell across the entrance, and I held my breath. "Hello?" a gruff voice called out. "Anyone in there?" I nearly wept with relief. It was human. "H here," I croaked, my voice hoarse from screaming. "I'm here." A bearded face peered into the cave, concern etched on weathered features. "You all right, son? You look like you've seen a ghost." As the man helped me out of the cave, I babbled about the creature that had chased me, the whispers in the mist, the bloody backpack. He listened patiently, a strange look in his eyes. "Come on," he said finally. "Let's get you back to my cabin. You need rest and a hot meal." I followed him gratefully, my legs wobbly beneath me. We walked for what felt like hours, the forest growing denser and darker around us. Something nagged at the back of my mind, a sense that something wasn't quite right, but I was too exhausted to care. Finally, we emerged into a small clearing. A rustic log cabin stood before us, tendrils of smoke curling from the chimney. It looked cozy, inviting, safe. But as we approached, I noticed strange symbols carved into the wood around the door frame. They seemed to writhe and shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. "What are those?" I asked, pointing. The man's face darkened. "Protection," he said gruffly. "From them." Before I could ask who they were, he ushered me inside. The cabin was dimly lit, cluttered with odd trinkets and jars filled with unidentifiable substances. The walls were covered in drawings, crude stick figures surrounded by trees, some sort of looming presence always lurking in the background. "Sit," the man commanded, gesturing to a worn armchair. "I'll make tea." As he busied himself in the small kitchen area, I examined the drawings more closely. They seemed to tell a story: hikers entering the forest, encounters with shadowy creatures, and then my blood ran cold. The final images showed the stick figures changing, becoming distorted and inhuman. "Here," the man said, thrusting a steaming mug into my hands. "Drink. It'll help." The tea had a bitter, herbal taste. As I sipped, warmth spread through my body, and the terror of the past day began to fade. My eyelids grew heavy. "Who are you?" I mumbled, fighting to stay awake. "What's happening in these woods?" The man sighed heavily, sinking into the chair opposite me. "Name's Jeremiah. Been living in these parts for nigh on 40 years. Seen things you wouldn't believe." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "This forest, it's old. Older than you can imagine. And it's alive, in a way. Hungry. It takes people, changes them, makes them part of itself." I shook my head, trying to clear the fog settling over my mind. "That's impossible," I slurred. Jeremiah's laugh was without humor. "I've seen it happen, boy. Watched good people turn into something else. Something that ain't human no more." He stood abruptly, pacing the small room. "I try to help when I can. Guide folks out, keep 'em safe. But sometimes the forest gets 'em first." A chill ran down my spine despite the warmth of the tea. "The backpack I found." "Ayu," Jeremiah nodded grimly. "Poor soul didn't make it. But you might have a chance." My vision swam, the room spinning around me. "What was in that tea?" I gasped. "Protection," Jeremiah said softly. "And a test. If you're still you come morning, I'll get you out of here. If not..." His voice faded as darkness claimed me. I fell into fevered dreams, full of twisted trees and lurching shadows. Voices whispered in my ear, promising power and eternal life if I just let go, just give in to the forest's embrace. I ran through endless woods, pursued by things I couldn't see but could feel breathing down my neck. The trees reached for me with gnarled branches, trying to ensnare me and pull me into their bark. Throughout it all, a small part of me clung desperately to who I was, to my humanity. I thought of my family, my friends, the life I had waiting for me beyond these cursed woods. I wouldn't let go. I couldn't. I woke with a gasp, sunlight streaming through dirty windows. Jeremiah loomed over me, a strange mixture of relief and disappointment on his face. "You made it," he grunted. "Still human. For now." As he helped me to my feet, I noticed my reflection in a cracked mirror on the wall. I looked haggard, with dark circles under my eyes, but still recognizably myself. Yet, was it my imagination, or did my eyes seem a shade greener than before? my hair a bit more wild, as if trying to mimic the tangled forest outside. Jeremiah saw me looking and nodded grimly. "The forest has touched you," he said. "Marked you. It won't let you go easy now." He handed me a small leather pouch on a cord. "Wear this. It'll help keep them away, mask your scent." The pouch smelled of herbs and something metallic. I slipped it over my neck, trying not to think too hard about what might be inside. "Come on," Jeremiah said, shouldering a battered rifle. "Let's get you out of here while we still can." We set off through the woods, Jeremiah leading the way with confident strides. I stumbled after him, every shadow and rustling leaf making me flinch. As we walked, Jeremiah told me more about the forest and its hunger. How it had been growing stronger over the years, its influence spreading. How he tried to warn people, to keep them away, but no one believed him. "Why don't you leave?" I asked. He shook his head. "Can't. Somebody's gotta try to help. And besides..." He trailed off, a haunted look in his eyes. I don't think it'd let me go, even if I wanted to. We walked for hours, the forest growing thicker and darker around us. More than once, I caught glimpses of movement just beyond the trees, tall, spindly shapes that vanished when I tried to focus on them. Jeremiah's head snapped up, nostrils flaring. "They're coming," he growled. "Run." We took off at a sprint, crashing through underbrush. I could hear them behind us now, inhuman shrieks and the sound of something large moving fast through the trees. Suddenly, Jeremiah stumbled, crying out in pain. I skidded to a stop, turning back to help him. "Go," he roared, struggling to his feet. "The trail's just ahead. Don't stop, don't look back. Run." I hesitated for a split second, then turned and ran. Jeremiah's screams echoed behind me, cut off abruptly by a wet, tearing sound. I ran harder than I'd ever run in my life, branches whipping my face, roots threatening to trip me with every step. The sounds of pursuit grew closer. Just when I thought my lungs would burst, I burst out of the tree line onto a wide, well-maintained trail. A sign pointed the way to the ranger station, less than a mile ahead. I allowed myself a moment of hope. I'd made it. I was safe. Then I heard it. A low, multi-voiced chuckle that seemed to come from the forest itself. "You think you can escape us so easily?" the voices whispered. "Foolish child. You are ours now. The forest is in your blood." I looked down at my hands in horror. Green veins pulsed beneath my skin, and my nails had lengthened into claw-like protrusions. "No," I whimpered. "No, this can't be happening." "Run to your rangers," the forest mocked. "Run to your civilized world. But you'll be back. They always come back." I staggered down the trail, my body feeling less and less like my own with every step. In the distance, I could see the ranger station. Safety. Normalcy. But behind me, the forest waited. Patient. Hungry. Knowing that a part of it now lived inside me, and that someday, that part would grow too strong to resist. I reached the ranger station door, my hand on the knob. But I hesitated, looking back at the deep, dark woods that now called to something within me. Where did I truly belong now? The choice was mine, but I feared the forest had already won.